President Trump pulls back from the brink for now. Good morning, Kuhner country. Okay, momentous decision yesterday, at least in the short term. President Trump now, through his press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, has now, at least for the remaining few days, at least the next couple days, maybe even the next 2 weeks, essentially now pumped the brakes on whether the United States will become directly involved in the war with Iran, joining Israel. There was tremendous pressure, even almost a sense of momentum, that Trump would inevitably come out in favor of U.S. strikes, especially a bombing campaign on Fordo, the nuclear enrichment facility that is heavily fortified, buried underneath a mountain, in which Trump would say yes. This was the sense in Washington anyway, that he would say yes to using American B-2 stealth bombers to drop these 30,000-pound bunker busters that could smash Fordo and effectively get rid of all and wipe out all of Iran's nuclear weapons facilities. President Trump made it very clear he is not going to be rushed into a decision. He met with his national security team for most of the day in the Situation Room. And with Israel now on the offensive, controlling the skies, having achieved total air dominance, and now pounding away, not just at key nuclear sites and facilities, but now at missile production facilities and plants, having eliminated over two-thirds, this is incredible, of Iran's missile launchers. Meaning if this war continues over the next 3, 4, 5 days, they will wipe out all of Iran's missile launchers, which means they can have all the ballistic missiles in the world. They could fly, and they launched, by the way, a couple yesterday, Mach 13. So these are super hypersonic missiles. You can have the best missiles in the world. If you don't have launchers, they're useless. They're literally useless. They're grounded. Israel now may be able to achieve what was thought in military history as the unthinkable, winning a war through air power alone. It is, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but there is now that very real possibility. And so, with Israel systematically dismantling Iran's nuclear infrastructure, piece by piece, just destroying their military leadership, their intelligence leadership, now their ballistic missile capabilities, Trump essentially concluded, if Israel is winning this war, why should the U.S. jump in now? What's the rush? Listen now to Caroline Leavitt. Roll cut 1. Mike.
Ongoing situation in Iran. I know there has been a lot of speculation amongst all of you in the media regarding the president's decision-making and whether or not the United States will be directly involved. In light of that news, I have a message directly from the president, and I quote, "Based on the fact that there's a substantial chance of negotiations that may or may not take place with Iran in the near future, I will make my decision whether or not to go within the next 2 weeks."
So he's now given himself a 2-week window, more maneuvering room, whether or not he will launch U.S. attacks on Iran and whether he will formally join Israel. Now, a couple of very important points, and then I want to ask you, the great audience of Kuhner Country. In fact, I'd love to take calls right after the break, literally. 617-266-6868 is the number, whether you agree with Trump's decision or not. It is now clear that Trump has made, at least for now, several conclusions. As I just said, that Israel is doing spectacularly well. That these successes are, in a sense, making it less urgent, at least in the short term, for the United States to have to jump into the war. So it seems it's almost like, he kind of took I'm not saying he took my advice, but people like me were arguing, stay the course. If Israel is doing our dirty work, and if Israel is destroying our enemy, just stand back and let them do what they do best, which is win. And so he's sort of looking around the room saying, okay, I understand about Fordo, but outside of Fordo, how much more could we add to this? So if Israel now is effectively destroying the mullahs and destroying their regime and destroying all of their nuclear capabilities, why should we then get directly involved and risk incurring the immense blowback that such a move would precipitate? So essentially Trump is saying, let Israel continue to do what they're doing. We have their back, and we're not going to get formally involved. Secondly, and this is the key point, I think, as well, Caroline Leavitt admitted yesterday, and I had reported this several days ago, that there still were back-channel negotiations taking place between the Iranian regime and the United States, that all communications were not cut off. As she put it, quote-unquote, correspondence continues. And so, as I speak to you now, in Geneva, Switzerland, European foreign ministers are meeting with Iran's negotiating team on our behalf. And they're basically now going to press the Iranians and the Ayatollah, the supreme leader. Look, Trump has now put down two markers. You cannot ever have a nuclear weapon, period. And you can never have nuclear enrichment, ever. Not even a scintilla, not even iota, not even a millisecond, not even a millimeter. So, if you are willing to sign to the unconditional surrender of your nuclear weapons program and allow the international community to have unfettered, unfiltered access, unlimited access, and they will come in and they will dismantle Fordo. They will dismantle Natanz. They will dismantle Bashir. In other words, everything. Instead of bombs dropping, which could lead to potential radioactive nuclear radiation fallout, let the inspectors come in and professionally, with expertise, safely dismantle and get rid of all of these nuclear enrichment sites and facilities. If the mullahs do not sign on the dotted line, essentially now Trump is committed to letting Israel finish this war and wipe this program militarily off the map. Now, I want to ask you, because this is the question, is Trump relying too much on the word of the mullahs? One of the criticisms now of a diplomatic endgame, of a diplomatic solution, is that the mullahs cannot be trusted. And at this late hour, with their regime clearly teetering, with their nuclear capabilities now being utterly obliterated, decimated, they'll sign anything. And then they'll try to play the game, this cat and mouse game, about letting in the inspectors, not letting in the inspectors, and then we're almost back to where we started. And so my question to you, should Trump have allowed the mullahs this 2-week window to potentially sign a diplomatic deal? Now, let me say one final thing. 617-266-6868 is the number. The left is crowing. I don't know why, but the left in this country, the deranged anti-Trump Democrats, are now claiming that Trump blinked. The neoconservatives, the war hawks, who were gripped with this war fever to push the United States into a formal war, an all-out war against Iran, are bitterly disappointed in Trump's decision yesterday for basically a 2-week extension, to give himself 2 weeks before he makes a final decision. They're saying Trump blinked, that his moment came and he should have joined Netanyahu and Israel and unleashed American buster bombs and unleashed fire and fury from the sky and end the nuclear program militarily once and for all. Let me be brutally honest with you. I think Trump made the absolute right decision. I think he's right. If Israel is winning the war, what benefit is it to us to now join when they're doing such a good job on their own? And as for a diplomatic solution, Trump is not naive. Trump is not gullible. The mullahs must sign an unconditional surrender. And unconditional means unconditional. If they start playing any games with the inspectors, he and Bibi will wipe them out. Give negotiations one last chance.
Regarding the ongoing situation in Iran, I know there has been a lot of speculation amongst all of you in the media regarding the president's decision-making and whether or not the United States will be directly involved. In light of that news, I have a message directly from the president, and I quote, "Based on the fact that there's a substantial chance of negotiations that may or may not take place with Iran in the near future, I will make my decision whether or not to go within the next 2 weeks."
That was Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt basically saying bombing Iran, at least from the United States' point of view, us getting directly involved and formally joining Israel, they're pumping the brakes for now. For now, Trump is pulling back, but as he said just the day before, I may bomb Iran, I may not bomb Iran. He's going to keep his cards very close to his vest. So, my question to you, Trump says he wants to give diplomacy a diplomatic solution, one last kick at the can. Good move, bad move, agree, disagree. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer, 6:35 now on the great WRKO. Just quickly, lines are jammed. I just want to read 2 messages I got on Messenger. This is from Mark, and I think Mark makes a really good point. Jeff, I'm glad President Trump is pulling back and taking his time in making a decision whether to send our bombers in to drop those big bunker busters. Iran did mention that they can finish the job themselves. So I say, let them. But on a side note, Jeff, I really don't trust Europe on making any deals with Iran. Oh, Mark, I agree with you. I agree with you. Look, my understanding, I could be wrong, but I'm just going by what the administration has said, what I've read in media reports, that this is more, they're kind of feeling out the Iranians. This huge, and it is a very big peace conference that they're holding in Geneva, Switzerland. The European foreign ministers are going to meet with the Iranians, their negotiating team, and basically they want to know, these non-negotiables that Trump has told them, no enrichment whatsoever at all, and no nuclear bomb whatsoever. Can Iran accept those 2 key provisions? And I think we'll pretty much know very quickly how serious the mullahs are. Now, my prediction, I think this is such a fanatical regime. I think that the Ayatollah and the crazies around him, these Shia lunatics, these Muslim fundamentalists, they're still, even in the midst of this historic military collapse that we're witnessing now over the past week, they're still going to say no. They're still going to quibble. Because, and you may disagree with me, because in the end, what will the mullahs have if they give up their nuclear weapons ambitions? Remember, the whole purpose of the regime is to bring about the end of days, what they call the 12th Imam. a world Muslim empire in which Israel is wiped out in a great ball of fire and there is a nuclear holocaust. So, no nukes, well, to be more accurate, no enrichment, no nukes. No nukes, no 12th Imam. So, to these religious zealots, these fanatics, they cannot give up the possibility of the bomb. Now, they can have a nuclear weapons program on ice. They'll live with that. In other words, wait. Remember, these people think in centuries. So, Allah, 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 Allah. They will wait 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, because for them, it's all about the end of the world. But so they'll wait. But to give up the weapons program, never. Now, again, you never know. Hand of God. Sometimes reason does, prevail. Sometimes self-preservation kicks in. And I think that's what Trump is hoping for. That someone who's sane and rational in that regime signs on the dotted line before we go, whether we join the war or not, before this regime implodes, and we may have anarchy, chaos, and maybe even civil war in Iran. And Trump understands that. He's not a stupid man. And just quickly, think about it. If the regime falls, there's no guarantee you're going to have a stable regime that's going to replace it. So, you've got all of these nuclear sites. Now, yes, they're damaged. Some are destroyed. They're in pieces. But you've got them all over the country. You've got a regime now that has collapsed. Just play out the scenario. If Iran plunges into anarchy, chaos, and civil war, you've got terrorist groups that could come in, grab parts of that nuclear program, maybe even grab parts of these enrichment capabilities or centrifuges. In other words, a completely destabilized Iran could lead to terrorist groups getting the bomb through the back door by infiltrating Iran as the country is essentially coming apart at the seams. So Trump is getting fed all of this information. So if people are saying, well, why is he so determined to end this diplomatically? Because he's not a fool. He knows, okay, yeah, the mullahs fall, great. And then what comes after them? Now, if the people rise up and they overthrow the mullahs and you have a genuine, viable, alternative successor government, that's something else. But if the war just goes on and on and on, and Israel is just hammering, and then the mullahs just collapse, then you've got chaos everywhere. And it could lead to a war, a civil war. It could lead to ISIS or Al-Qaeda or other terrorist groups coming in and seizing parts of that broken nuclear program for themselves. So that's why Trump is determined to push diplomacy to the absolute possible limit. Agree, disagree. Joe in Atlanta, Georgia. Thanks for holding, Joe, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff, bulldozer fan in the South.
Thank you, Joe.
3 points. You're going to find I disagree, and I would really love for you to address them.
Sure.
First one is I don't remember you or many other people complaining when Trump bombed Syria, he bombed Soleimani, and he bombed the Houthis. I don't understand the difference. Second, as far as you thinking the delay would help with the media, that they're going to say, oh, yeah, Trump waited. Come on, you know that's not going to happen. And lastly, what may bother me even the most is this is a week-old story already. Now you're extending it 2 more weeks. What happened with immigration in L.A.? We were on the cusp of breaking the whole immigration culture by saving L.A., and I'm just scared that I know you can walk and chew gum, but look at the media every night, and now you're prolonging it 2 more weeks.
Oh, that's a very good point. Well, look, I think, the 2 weeks is going to, there's no question now, it's going to put Immigration on the back burner. You're right on that. It's going to put other issues now, important issues on the back burner. But, look, the most important decision a president makes is whether we go to war. 649 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Just very quickly, I want to answer Joe, because he made some very good points, actually. Joe in Atlanta. No, Joe, look, you're completely right. Look, immigration now is on the back burner. No one's talking about what's going on in Portland, in L.A., in Chicago. Very dramatic developments taking place. It's all Iran around the clock. And to be fair, because we're potentially about to enter a war against a major Middle East power that has the backing of China, Russia, and Pakistan. So it could lead to a regional war. It could lead even, God forbid, to a world war. So, and this is what Trump is also talking about personally. He goes, look at how my agenda is already being thwarted, and I'm just talking about maybe entering the war. Once I go in, if my generals don't deliver a very quick, decisive knockout victory, my immigration agenda is in trouble. My big, beautiful bill is in trouble. A lot of what I need to accomplish as president is going to be utterly derailed and upended. So I think that's another reason why, frankly, he wants to give diplomacy another chance. Now, as to your larger point, Joe, look, I opposed the bombing in Syria under Trump. I thought it was a mistake. And in that bombing campaign, then Bashar Assad was the dictator of Syria. We killed nearly 100 Russian soldiers. The media downplayed that, but the fact is, it wasn't quite 100. It was maybe 92, 94. Anyway, don't quote me, but it was over 90 Russian soldiers, almost 100. Vladimir Putin had a casus belli to go to war with us. That could have led legitimately to World War III. So I opposed that war, and we were very lucky that it was Putin that backed down. And you mentioned, well, Jeff, what about the Houthis in Yemen? Well, look, the Yemen, again, just countries matter. Iran is a big country, 92 million, strategically placed in the Middle East, and it's got a very, very important asset, oil. Oil, and not just oil, that it's swimming in liquid gold, but it sells this oil to both China, Pakistan, and Russia, especially China. So Iran has very powerful backers. They are essentially a client state of China and Russia. And, not to get too into the weeds here, but this is also important, it neighbors countries like Iraq and Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates and Qatar and Kuwait. And so a lot of the oil that comes from those countries, from the Persian Gulf area, goes right along Iran through the Strait of Hormuz. So the mullahs could mine the Strait of Hormuz. In fact, they're threatening to do that, which would cut off most of the world's oil supply, which would send oil prices skyrocketing. We're talking massive price shocks, which would lead to massive inflation. And, people paying, I don't know, $8, $10, $12, $15 a gallon at the pump. So what I'm saying is, because of its strategic location and the consequences of going to war with Iran, the stakes are infinitely higher. The consequences are much more profound than Yemen, which is a very poor country, no oil, no resources, barren. It's been split in a horrible civil war. And yes, the Houthis are a proxy of Iran, but they only control a part of Yemen. So they harass us on the Red Sea. They can launch some missiles, go after our shipping. But they can't do damage to the region, to the world, to us, the way Iran can. So that's why the decision to go to war is very different regarding Iran than it is to hammer the Houthis. Now, just very quickly, and I just want to read this from Larry on Messenger, because I think he hit the nail right on the head. All this talk, if you remember, Trump is a warmonger. Remember that? Trump is Hitler. Here, let me ask all of you. If Hitler had a chance to go to war, you think Hitler would be pushing for negotiation after negotiation after negotiation and saying, I don't want to do it, I really don't want to do it? No. Remember, this is what Larry wrote. But Jeff, Trump is an unstable maniac who is going to lead all of us into World War III. Well, again, another lie, another myth. Trump is a man of peace. He wants peace in the Middle East. He wants peace in Ukraine. He wants peace for the United States. And then Larry does make a point, and I'm going to mention it, but I'd like to have this discussion maybe a little bit later in the show. But I think he really makes a good point. Jeff, can we trust the intelligence community, the same one that claimed weapons of mass destruction in Iraq? And I want to play the cut from Caroline Leavitt. Let me throw this log on the fire. Here is what she said yesterday. She's saying, she said, look, we want to give peace a chance. She said Trump believes there is a substantial chance that negotiations will work. But she says, make no doubt about it, Iran now has never been closer to obtaining a nuclear weapon. That, according to what our intelligence community now says, they are 3 weeks away. Before the bombing campaign by Israel last week, they were 3 weeks away from acquiring the bomb. Roll cut to a mic.
When the president says Iran is very close to a nuclear weapon, is he relying on U.S. intelligence or intelligence sharing from an ally to make that assessment?
It is a fact, and the United States government maintains this fact, that Iran has never been closer to obtaining a nuclear weapon.
I want to see evidence for that. I want to see the evidence. Again, look, they clearly have an active nuclear weapons program, no question. No question. That's why they have all these enrichment facilities. So it's obvious, yes. But this claim now, when they say it's, remember, they kept saying, oh, WMDs, it's a fact. It's a fact. No, I'm sorry. With all due respect, I don't care who the government is, who's in power. I don't care. When the intelligence community says something, I don't trust them anymore. Show me the receipts. Show me the evidence. I want proof. I no longer trust the deep state. I don't trust the intelligence community. I'm not going to go by blind faith. I'm not just going to say, well, okay, if you tell us so. No. Sure. I'm not saying Trump shouldn't bomb. I am saying he shouldn't bomb for now. And I support Israel's bombing campaign. But if you're going to try to tell me we have to go to war now, because they're 3 weeks away from the bomb, show me the proof. I need to see the proof. Because I'm sorry, you've lost that privilege. Maybe 40, 50 years ago, I would have said, okay, with their track record, I believe them. But after all of the lies of the deep state, all of the lies of the intelligence community, no, I'm sorry, I don't believe it anymore. I don't believe it. So you may claim it's a fact. Until you show us the evidence, I'm sorry, it's not a fact. Agree, disagree, 617-266-6868. Lou in Rhode Island. Thanks for holding, Lou, and welcome.
Yeah, good morning, Jeff.
Hi.
I don't want to get sidetracked, but I want to answer with that thing about the 3 weeks. No matter whether they have it's 3 weeks or not, I'm not sure about that either. I'm doubtful about that, or question that anyway. The fact is that they do have 12 or more hidden facilities there that are located very deep inside the inside the earth there, inside mountains there. So they have the facilities that we need to dismantle.
Yes.
Okay, that's for absolute certainty.
Yes, definitely.
Whether it's in 3 weeks or not, I don't know. But the thing is that's an important thing. Now, before I get to really my main point, I have to mention two things you're talking about. You talk about Pakistan, you talk about China. Now, Pakistan and China may not be so invested in Iran anymore because President Trump just made some deals with them. And I think they want our markets and they want their success of their economy more than they want to back this crazy mullah regime in Iran. And I think Trump is great at making those deals surrounding Iran and surrounding this area with China and Pakistan to maybe weaken their support of Iran and maybe even assuring China and Pakistan of getting oil as well. So, I mean, I think let me face it, let me put it this way. I'm answering your question. He's been brilliant in this whole thing the whole way, in almost every phase of everything he's doing, including now. I think we're still shipping people out of this country, and ICE is still rounding people up. And now nobody's watching them, but they're still doing it. He's been brilliant in every phase that he's been involved in, and I sort of trusted in these 2 weeks. I mean, it's amazing. I think he's trying to assess a lot of things. Number one, he's trying to assess what kind of opposition these mullahs have in Iran. I mean, the people there have been oppressed. I mean, Iran has basically been like Hamas, taking all the money they have and putting it to terrorism, to their military, to building nuclear facilities, but neglecting the people who are suffering from high inflation and oppression and all kinds of things. Remember, they still have 20,000 women who are locked up for not wearing hijabs or whatever they're called. Hijabs, right. And they've been oppressing their people, but he doesn't know if there is any kind of organized opposition or anybody ready to take over. I know the Shah has been talking pretty much lately, but we don't know that for sure. But he has given himself time to assess this situation. As far as the mullahs are concerned, they remember they're allowed to lie to infidels, and they're exactly like the Democrats who lie to us too because they hate us too. I mean, it's amazing how the Democrats and the jihadists are exactly alike in their opposition to the U.S. and Israel. And I think we can't trust them. Of course, it's not trust but verify anymore. It's verify and dismantle. That should be the case right now. And maybe he can pull off a deal, but the deal also has to consider that there might be opposition in Iran, that the people in Iran may want a totally new government, or at least weaken the mullah's government, and we've got to assess all of that stuff, and then let Israel do its job while we're trying to talk. And if they even if they have a nuke, if their delivery system is totally dismantled, they're not going to be able to deliver it. So that's a good thing too.
Lou. You're making. By the way, you are hitting every point. You're on fire. Your last one, I think, is almost like the culmination. Look, that's the thing now. That's the crisis that's facing the mullahs. Okay, you're right. If they even have a nuke, say they have a secret nuke, they're coming dangerously close to not having the means to deliver it because Israel is now so systematically eliminating all of their missile launchers. That's what's incredible. So over 2/3, now they're saying 70% of their missile launchers are gone, destroyed, disabled, whatever you want to say. So they're down to just about 100 missile launchers now, maybe even just a little bit less. And by the way, they hit more of them last night, and they hit more of their production facilities to make missile launchers. So look, Bibi said it. He goes, look, it's going to take a little, I think by time he means like a week. But he's like, it's going to take a little bit of time. It's step by step by step. I'm cutting off your hand. Then I cut off the left arm. Then I cut off your right hand. Then I cut off your right arm. Then I cut off your left foot. Then I cut off your left leg. Then I cut off your right foot. Then I cut off your right leg. And pretty soon you're dead. And that's what he's doing. It's just piece by piece, surgical, clean, concise, devastating. And look, Lou, I think Trump has made his decision. I think his decision was made yesterday. Now, again, you may disagree. The audience may disagree. At the pace that this war is going, and again, Trump is right. He's a wise man. He's experienced. So, he's 79 years old. He's seen a lot of the world. Wars can turn. Wars are never predictable. No war ever goes exactly like you think it's going to go. That's why you have to have all these contingencies in place. So I want to state that up front. But if the war continues the way it's going now, and the mullahs continue to retreat, and you continue to see them collapse and implode, this thing is over in 2 weeks. What I mean is, before even Trump makes his decision, Iran's going to win this war. If they have no missile launchers left, say by early next week, if this continues, then it's like a fighter who's got both arms down and can't throw a punch. Then at that point, Iran is defenseless. And then Israel can rain death and destruction at will and just hit him and hit him and hit him again and again. So what I'm saying is, Trump may be saying, look, I'm going to give myself 2 weeks. It gives the opposition time to mobilize and organize, the internal opposition in Iran. I am going to give the mullahs one last chance because I would like to see this end in a way that doesn't increase the possibility or the threat of radioactivity contamination from the constant bombing. And, you know, we are worried about regime change in the sense of what's going to come after. I don't want to see an Iran in a civil war or in chaos. So, yeah, we'd like to end this the quicker the better. But he's also thinking, why should I come in when the Israelis now are on the verge of pulling off maybe one of the greatest military victories in the history of warfare? By the time I make my 2-week window done, by the time it closes, the Iranians are finished. The mullahs, I mean, the Ayatollahs are done. They've lost. So what I'm saying is his decision to not make a decision is a decision. Basically, to me, it's wink, wink, Bibi, you finish it. Because honestly, I don't see this war lasting more than another 2 weeks. At least not at the rate that it's going now. And I can't believe I'm saying this. Again, I don't want to repeat myself. I said it yesterday, but it bears repeating. This is akin to the collapse of France in 1940. I'm talking about a military defeat that people still talk about. It's like when Napoleon shattered the Austrian army in 1807. It was one of the greatest. I mean, this was the mighty Austrian army. And Napoleon wiped them out in days. The world couldn't believe it. And frankly, the Austrian Empire never recovered. France I don't believe France has ever truly recovered from their defeat in 1940. Culturally, socially, spiritually, nationally, they've never been the same. The mullahs radical Islam is never going to be the same if this war continues the way it is. If they collapse the way they're collapsing now, if this continues, I mean, you want to talk about a paper tiger. So again, I don't want to get ahead of myself. So I think honestly, Trump looking at everything coming in, it's all with him, and he's right. It's cost benefit. And he's like, there's a big cost to us entering the war. As the expression, you break it, you own it. So are we going to, we're going to be involved in Iran now. We're going to be sending potentially our planes, our bombers. If the regime falls, we're going to be there to have to pick it up, put the pieces back together. China, it may trigger China. It may trigger Russia. You never know. It may derail my entire domestic agenda because now I got to go to Congress, maybe ask for authorization. All people are going to talk about now because U.S. forces are engaged. Once U.S. forces are engaged, the American public is completely engaged. It knocks everything out. And Trump's saying, okay, and what's the benefit? Okay, Fordo, I get it. But Israel has said they can do Fordo without us. If need be, we can make this work. We can train Israeli pilots. We can give them a stealth bomber and drop a couple of these bunker busters. So they can even do that for us. So I get big cost, little benefit. Let me wait. Art of the deal. What Trump is doing now, think of a man on a high wire. He's on a wire. There's no safety net underneath. And he's walking, and he's keeping his cards very close to his chest. That's what he's doing. I may bomb, I may not bomb. He has the mullahs now in knots. They're under tremendous pressure, massive military buildup. He's in their heads. They don't know if he will, if he won't. And all they know is Israel is hammering them day and night, day and night. So far, it's a masterclass. Lou, thank you very much for that call. 617-266-6868. And I just want to say one last thing, because I was talking about this with Grace last night. She said, well, hey, what are you going to lead with today? Like on today's show. I said, the war, obviously. And, the developments, and that Trump now is going to give another 2 weeks, and he wants to give diplomacy a chance. And I said, this is one of the most momentous moments in history. We're living through, I'm telling you, this war, this presidency, this moment is going to be written about for hundreds of years. This is one of these battles. This is one of these military campaigns. I agree with Victor Davis Hanson completely. This could now be the moment that fundamentally transforms the Middle East and the United States and the direction of the world. And what you're seeing with Trump, coolness under fire, coolness under pressure. He's not allowing anyone to stampede him or pressure him or push him into making a decision that he believes is not in the national interest of the United States. He's not being dragooned to war. And for that, I tip my hat off to him. Marilyn in Norwood. Thanks for holding, Marilyn. Oh, Mike. Mike, what happened to the countdown, Mike, for God's sake? Okay, Marilyn, please hang on. I got to go for a hard break, but I'll be right back. 7:19 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. All right, Trump says, give negotiations one last chance before the United States formally enters the war. I'm not saying he's made a decision, but he says he's going to take 2 weeks. But there's a substantial chance, as he put it, for a deal with the mullahs. He wants to give it that chance. Agree, disagree. 617-266-6868. Marilyn in Norwood. Thanks for holding, Marilyn, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Hi.
I'm not sure how widely known this is to the public at large because sadly our news media tends to, emphasize what I would call trivia or misinformation. But in 2023, the University of Technology, Sydney, specifically August 9th, 2023, produced a report that Iran has the world's second largest lithium deposits. So right now, China is dependent upon Chile and other countries for the lithium extraction, which then is sent to China where it's refined. So I would say if I could sit down with President Trump, I would say to him, Mr. President, here is the opportunity of a lifetime. The U.S. and many other countries of the world, advanced countries of the world, need to extricate themselves from dependence on China for lithium, which is processed lithium, which is now controlling or influencing the world market in terms of pricing. So the best way to bring peace to the Middle East is through a collaboration with Iran to develop that market. And this documentation is also known to the U.S. Army because I verified what I had read on the University of Technology Sydney's website. I was able to locate I'm going to tell you precisely what it is. So it is now known by the U.S. government, but because we're such a big behemoth, I think that you have all these specialized people here, there, and everywhere, and a lot of times critical information is not really shared.
Oh, no, Marilyn, you're right. No, Marilyn, you're absolutely right. Look, Iran, besides its vast oil and natural gas, and you mentioned the lithium, Iran has, just almost an infinite amount of natural resources. It is resource rich. And to be honest, that's why the Chinese are backing the Iranians, because they want to plunder that country. That's what they want. They want to suck it dry. By the way, like they're sucking Afghanistan dry. And so one of the big stories over the last 48 hours is that Chinese transport planes have been seen landing in Tehran. And Xi Jinping has told Israel, these planes are going, we're not telling you why or what's in them, but you better not shoot any of them down. You shoot one of those planes down, you're at war with China. And you don't want to be at war with us. So what are the Chinese doing there? We don't know. What are they supplying the mullahs with? We don't know. What are they taking out of the country? We don't know. But there's no question that even more than Russia, China now has become really the big protector and guarantor of Iran. Iran is effectively a client state of China. And so this is things are happening so fast that it's hard to process everything. But what Israel is doing now, obviously with us helping them every step of the way, is they're reshaping the Middle East. And they're possibly reshaping the world. If Iran falls, what I mean by if the mullahs fall, if they lose power, this is a massive blow to China and Russia. And to Pakistan as well. It is especially to China, it is a massive, massive, massive blow. There's no question about it. They will have lost one of their top client states. And that's why the fight's going to be on for what kind of a government replaces the mullahs. And what is scaring Trump, and he's right to be worried about this, because it's scaring everybody in his team, is if Iran descends into pure anarchy, civil war, and chaos. That's the one thing you don't want. Because then you're going to have ISIS on steroids with nuclear components and shattered nuclear facilities and enrichment sites and centrifuges littered all around the country. So that's why, everyone's saying, well, why doesn't Trump just jump in? Why don't you just jump in? Because he's looking at the global chessboard. The expression 3D chess, he's playing 3D chess. And so far, again, fingers crossed, he's kept China at bay, contained them for the most part. He's kept Russia and Pakistan at bay. The entire Muslim Middle East is quiet. And Israel is rolling them. Now think about it. The second the United States jumps in, and I know from our domestic point of view, we're saying, well, we just want to hammer Fordo. We just want to annihilate and decimate Fordo. It doesn't matter. China, the world will say, well, where's China? It's one thing for Israel and Iran to fight it out, because that's a proxy war. This is a proxy war now between the United States and China. Okay, and to a lesser extent, Russia allied with China. But this is now a proxy war. Now, a proxy war is always a proxy war. Fine, you don't get involved, we don't get involved. And, our proxies are fighting. So it's all fine. But the moment we make the official declaration that we're in, the world's going to look to China and say, and your proxy now is being ganged up on by the great Satan, the United States, and the little Satan, now Israel? And you're just going to let him fall? So Trump is looking at this and saying, why? I jump in, China now may respond, Russia may respond, the Muslim Middle East may be inflamed. Let Israel do what it's doing. We're on the verge of victory. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. 7:33 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, liberalism's worst nightmare, baby. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, Jim messaged me maybe about 5-7 minutes ago. And Jim, you're a genius. That's all. I'm telling you right now, you're a genius. So, because you and I are so simpatico on this. Here's what Jim wrote to me on Messenger. Let me throw this log on the fire. Jeff, is it possible that the United States needs 2 weeks to get those bunker busters and those bombers to Israel? Bingo. Bingo. That's exactly what I thought when they came out with that statement that Trump wants to give himself another 2 weeks before he makes a final decision on whether the United States will strike or bomb Iran. I'm thinking 2 weeks. Wow. Okay. Plenty of time to send over our bunker busters to Israel, send in the stealth B-2 bombers, train the Israeli pilots. I mean, they're excellent pilots, but they have to be trained on these stealth bombers, and say, okay, guys, now you got everything that you need. And shalom. You know, happy hunting. So, again, I don't have any inside knowledge, but that's you and I are on the same page, Jim. I think there's no question now. He wants to give Israel every tool, every weapon, every ability now to deliver a final knockout blow. And 2 weeks, the way the Israeli Air Force is now proceeding at this lightning speed, with this level of effectiveness, 2 weeks is enough time to give them these bunker busters, these 30,000-pound bombs, these massive ordinances, send in these stealth bombers, give them some training, and guys, take out Fordo, and this thing is over. 617-266-6868. Agree, disagree. Jack in Tewksbury. Thanks for holding, Jack, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Hi, Jack.
Is this not the epitome of a Pandora's box?
You mean now, or if we go in?
Just now, just terrified to open that box because we don't know what's going to happen, how this is going to end up. And I also think Trump's waiting on the.
Jack, I promise I'll give you all the time to finish your point. I promise. Trump's people are listening. I'm telling you, they've been listening all week, and they're worried about influencers. Not worried, but they want to know what influencers like me. Others think, what our audiences think. So if, you have their ear now, what would you tell President Trump? It's a Pandora's box. He's about to open it, or should he leave it closed? Should he open it? What would be your advice to him right now, Jack?
I like your reference of giving himself more runway. There's no need to rush into this. The Israelis are doing a great job. They're more than capable of taking care of themselves. They've proved it many times throughout history, and they've definitely proved it by the pager when they took out a bunch of leaders with all those pages they had given out. They waited years for these things, for that operation to take hold. And they've also set up the drones in Iran to strike before the jets flew in. They're more than capable of handling themselves, and I think Trump knows that too. I think Trump is waiting on the intelligence community to figure out, have they got this right? Because he does not want another weapons of mass destruction fiasco. He said it in his first campaign when he hammered Jeb Bush. It was the biggest mistake we ever did was going into Iraq and destabilize the Middle East. He does not want to be that guy that destabilizes it once again. by taking down Iran and creating a whole Pandora's box when everything goes to hell.
Jack, forgive me. Jack, I couldn't have said it better myself. And I have to tell you, I'm just guessing now, but I suspect that Trump's people who are listening are just nodding their head up and down. I think you hit the nail right on the head. Right on the head. Jack, thank you very much for that call. Really smart call. 617-266-6868. Again, agree, disagree. Again, I want to ask the question to those of you, because, this is Kuhner country. So this is a voice for everybody who's a Trump supporter, a MAGA conservative, America first. So I want to hear all points of view. It's like a family. You're at the dinner table. Everybody gets a say. Everybody gets their say. To those of you that wanted Trump to pull the proverbial trigger and launch a bombing campaign and take out Fordo and really just take out all of these nuclear facilities, are you disappointed that he's pumped the brakes and said no decision will be made for 2 weeks and that he wants to give negotiations one more chance? Do you think he blinked? Or are you able to live with this? Or do you think he's missed now maybe a once in a century lifetime with all the momentum that he could have gone in with Israel and maybe even taken out the mullahs, taken out the nuclear weapons program, the whole kit and caboodle? Are you disappointed in his decision? I'm just curious. I want to hear from you. 617-266-6868. Mark in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Mark, and welcome.
Buddy.
Mark, how are you, my friend?
Good. Hey, listen, I applaud Israel for what they're doing. I think it's long overdue. I don't have a problem at all with it. My issue is this, though. I going in there. If we learned anything from Afghanistan, you can't just roll in and take these people out. We went into Afghanistan against the Taliban. No fighter jets, no helicopters, no tanks, no Navy, not an organized army, right? If you think we could just roll into Iran and police the streets, it's not going to happen. Let's say even half the population still supports the mullahs. You're talking about 46 million people who are willing to die, strap a bomb to their chest, and blow themselves up in the name of their faith, okay? That's 46 million fighters. You're not going to stop that. You'll be mired in another 25-year war with the hopes that maybe we can convince enough people to rise up. It didn't happen in Afghanistan, and it's not going to happen here. Truthfully, I think the best thing Trump should do, keep working towards some kind of a peace deal. But in the meantime, I think that the Shah's son, this prince, he should be reaching out to the military leaders below the mullahs and telling them, look, take over the country. Kick the mullahs out, overthrow them. The military can rule the country for now, and we'll work towards a better nation. If they can turn the military against the mullahs, I think that's a win-win, and that will, prevent the U.S. from having to do anything. But in the meantime, Israel just keep pounding the snots out of them.
Mark, I think it's an absolutely brilliant analysis. I got to tell you, and the Crown Prince has reached out. He says that the Iranian regime is now falling. He says it's pretty much over. He's urging people to rise up. He's trying to reach out, exactly what you're doing and what you're suggesting, and have a transitional government. He said he's willing to be the figurehead. He said we'll never return to a autocratic monarchy. Those days are long gone. I'll be a transitional figure to national elections in 3 or 4 months. But the military should step in, overthrow the mullahs along with the people, and create a transition for a better government, for a better future for all Iranians. Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed, Mark. 7:49 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer, cleaning up the liberal bull. 617-266-6868 is the number. Joe in Lynn. Thanks for holding, Joe, and welcome.
Hi, Jeff. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Joe? Joe? It sounds like you got mail, Joe. Like email. Joe, are you there?
Yeah, I had to get you off the speaker, Jeff.
All right, go ahead, Joe. Go ahead, my friend.
Jeff, I think this man has earned our trust. I would have been good if he bombed last night, or I'm good with him waiting 2 weeks. With what this man has put up with, taking a bullet for us, he hasn't broken any of his promises to us. I think we owe it to him to give him the leeway.
Joe, I'm just curious. Do you think that the mullahs will agree to a negotiated settlement? Do you think, in other words, Trump says he believes there's a substantial chance that we could have a peace negotiation, a deal. Do you think the mullahs will sign a deal with all of this pressure now on them, with Israel just bombing them to the Stone Age, with their military now getting decimated? Do you think that they're going to sign, or do you think they're just almost like Hitler in the bunker? They're just going to stay and ride this thing out to the bitter end?
No, Jeff, they're fanatics. They're going to stay and ride this out to the bitter end, and eventually he's going to have to do what he has to do, and I'm good with that. We can't allow them to have a nuclear weapon because they're going to use it on Israel, and if they have the opportunity, they're going to use it on us.
Joe, thank you very much for that call. I really appreciate it. 617-266-6868. Joe says he trusts Trump. He hasn't lied to us. He's kept all of his promises. He's earned that trust. And look, 2 weeks is not going to kill us. So, and he says, look, ultimately, Trump's instincts are completely right. Iran must not be allowed to get the bomb. They'll use it on Israel, and if they can, they'll use it on us. Agree, disagree? Nick in Weymouth. Thanks for holding, Nick, and welcome.
How you doing, Jeff?
Good. How are you, Nick?
Hey, thanks, brother. I'm doing great. Yesterday was my birthday, so I'm feeling pretty good. I'm pretty
Happy birthday, Nick.
I needed that. Thank you. Anyway, Jeff, you're a history man. I know you're a history man, right? That's what you did, right?
Yes.
So, in your early avocation. So, what does history do? Well, let me think. What does history not do when you don't teach it? I remember in the 60s, because of my ancient age, that history as a subject became known as social studies. Isn't that interesting? Social studies. I went to a Catholic school situation, grammar school, high school, college. A lot of Jesuits in there, a lot of nuns in there. I appreciate the nuns, by the way, immensely. And history was what? Well, we're North America. We had indigenous people, as they say, who came from probably Far East Asia or something like that. But we also had other people coming here. Where did they come from? Primarily Europe. So we studied, firstly, especially in high school, Western civilization history. Why? We're Western civilization. We're not Far Eastern. We're not African, et cetera, et cetera. That's what you study. How did you become what you became? And in doing so, you see what global domination always ever was, right? Even if you went back to ancient Greece, ancient Rome, etc., which I learned in high school because you're studying, learning Latin and Greek, etc. You learn it's all about power, like we always say, like the Democrats. They want the power. Crooked Republican politicians, they want the power. So this thing here, China is to Iran as Iran has been to Hezbollah and Hamas, okay? They're the benefactors of that. The drones that they have, right? The rocketry they have, that came from China, who, by the way, stole it from the United States during Clinton's administration, who let it happen. 8 aerospace industries all got fined. Nobody went to jail. That's like Hughes Aircraft, Loring Space, Boeing, et cetera, just slaps on the wrist. Same thing with the world's largest banks. So when Trump gives a final address, not that anybody pays attention to, and as I always recommend, look at Eisenhower's. He not only told you about the industrial complex, he told you about the elite from the college level, etc., where they absorb tons of money from the United States, which drives what they do. Okay? So that's what you got to learn. With the most prescient thing that he should say in his final address, watch out who you vote for. What happened recently with Iran, we know it was the Obama administration. We know it was the Biden administration. We know it was the politicians that let that happen. And I guess that's the biggest thing we could learn, Jeff.
You're dead on. Absolutely dead on. Words of wisdom from a man who celebrated his birthday yesterday and obviously has seen a lot of politics and history over the last 60-plus years, 65 years, whatever. You're dead on. Look, there's no question. There's no question. The reason why we're in this mess, and it's a mess, is because of 3 Democrats. Let's be crystal clear. Jimmy Carter, that buffoon, who pulled the plug on the Shah, to me, to his eternal disgrace. Whatever you think about the Shah, he was infinitely better for the Iranian people, for the Middle East, for America, for the world, than these Islamist 7th century savages that have been running that country now for the last, 45, 46 years. Number 2, Barack Hussein Obama, who gave the mullahs billions of dollars that they used to build up their nuclear weapons program, that they used to fund and support Hamas, Hezbollah, Bashar Assad in Syria, the Houthis in Yemen. So their entire terrorist proxy army was funded by the money we gave to the mullahs. And of course, that vegetable, Joe Biden, who gave them billions and billions and billions of dollars more. And that's why they had the money, the funding to now come to the cusp of a nuclear bomb. That honestly, if we don't take care of, is going to be the end of the Middle East as we know it. Because the one thing liberals do not understand is that Israel, having suffered one Holocaust, will never accept a second Holocaust. They will never go quietly into the gas ovens again. Now, what the media doesn't tell you is that Israel has at least 100, if not 200 nuclear missiles with warheads. So, when Iran gets the bomb, they won't now, but if they do ever get the bomb, and they're going to use it, Israel's going to fire back. It's going to be a nuclear war. And as Trump rightly said, it's not just Israel that'll be destroyed, and it's not just Iran that'll be destroyed. It's all of the other countries in between. And then never mind the damage to the environment and to the atmosphere. So, to be brutally honest with you, I blame the Democrats, I blame liberals who voted for Carter, who voted for Obama, who voted for that vegetable Joe Biden, because they have brought the world now to this point. And again, what is Trump doing? He's just cleaning up their mess. Whether it's the open border, whether it's the illegals that Biden allowed to pour into our country, whether it's the damage to our economy, whether it's inflation, whether it's crime, whether it's the Russia-Ukraine war, whether it's now this a mess with Iran and the mullahs potentially now being on the brink of a nuclear weapon. And clearly the rise of China. You're right. All of the technology that China has, their sophisticated military technology, they stole from us. And then they handed it to the mullahs, who, by the way, then handed a lot of it to the Russians. And so that's what we've done by empowering the communist Chinese. Again, a disaster of the last 25 years. And you have these idiot liberals who are like, I want to buy my $10 sneakers. That's all I care about. Yeah, you're an idiot. Seriously, you're an idiot. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, 8 o'clock. You know what that means. Kuhner's call log, caller of the week.
It's time for Kuhner's call log, where we showcase our favorite caller from the week.
I can hear you. Can you hear me? Thanks for holding, Bill.
Have you ever lived in a neighborhood where you have a next-door neighbor that is constantly doing something annoying, and the other neighbors are just so sick of it, whatever it is? It's funny because everybody can understand the analogy, and the simple fact is there are other people in the neighborhood. Eventually, they just say, enough. And I think the really sad part is we've had maybe 2 generations, maybe 3 generations now, of not knowing what having a quiet neighborhood is about. We don't know. Iran's doing this, and Iran's saying that, and Iran's poking this. It's enough. Can you ever imagine, which we can't because we haven't experienced it yet, an article in the New York Times, Chicago Tribune, Miami Herald, whatever, it doesn't matter. Something not about Iran being a pain in the you-know-what? We have never seen that. And it's going to be very odd, I think, to see the world quiet.
And next week, it could be you on Kuhner's call log.
Please, don't be a stranger. Call again. Best callers in the business. Honestly, best audience in the business, best callers in the business. Jeff, you always say it because it's true. I don't know what else to tell you. Okay, very quick. There are now protests emerging against Donald Trump, against Israel for having launched these attacks against Iran by the radical left, by Democrats across the country. And you're seeing it in Los Angeles now. You're seeing it in New York. You're seeing it in Chicago. Pretty soon you're going to see it here in Boston. And I'm not kidding. The very same anti-Doge protesters, the pro-Palestinian, pro-Hamas protesters, those Jew haters, the anti-ICE protesters, now they've just taken up the Iranian flag. It's the same protesters, different cause, and now they're taking to the streets. It's already happening the last 24, 48 hours. You're seeing them everywhere waving the Iranian flag and saying, hands off Iran. They want Israel to stop their bombing campaign. They're calling Trump now a war criminal. They're calling Bibi a war criminal. They are siding with the mullahs. And my question to you, if Trump decides to commit us to a war against Iran, and I'm not saying he will, but if he does, will the Democrats openly ally themselves with the Islamo-Nazis in Tehran? Are the Democrats going to side with the Ayatollahs, those who chant death to America, death to Israel? Will they side with them against their own country, the United States? I'm just curious. 617-266-6868. Bill in Sudbury. Bill, we haven't heard from you in a while. Good to hear from you, Bill. How are you, and what's on your mind?
Hello, good morning, good morning. I kind of think there's no way we don't give Israel these bunker busters, these whatever they're asking for. I honestly think there's no way we don't give them to them. So I'm not sure what we're wringing our hands about for 2 weeks. But describe for me what you think the reaction here in America would be if Mr. Trump decided we're not giving these bunker busters to Israel. Describe for me what you think that would look like.
You mean what kind of reaction? You mean political reaction, or?
Yeah, exactly. The first day or two. If he would have come out and say, I've decided I'm not giving them these bunker busters.
Well, I think it depends what happens in Iran, Bill. I think because Israel has said that they can do it without the bunker busters. So, as you know, they've got smaller penetrating bombs, not quite as big as the 30,000-pound bombs, but they're saying, look, we'll just drop 4, 5, 6 of them on Fordow, basically, chip away at these mountains, hollow them out, and then go in and destroy them, or they can go with a commando raid. So if Israel takes out Fordow, then it's irrelevant whether we gave them the bunker busters or not. So I think it depends on what happens in Iran. Look, I think there's no question, Bill, that Trump will not allow Fordow to remain intact. He can't. The civilized world can't. So the Europeans have said so as well. So Israel is going to take out Fordow. The only question is how and what weapons will they use. And for once, you and I agree. You and I completely agree on this, Bill. I think Trump will give, if need be, Trump will give them the bunker busters, and Israel will use it, and I think effectively this war will be over. And again, I really want to stress this. Obama's dream will have been destroyed. Not just that of the Ayatollahs, but the dream of Obama. Obama, from his father, and he was open about this. If you read Dreams from My Father, he's crystal clear. His goal was to bring America to its knees, to weaken America, to undermine America, to strengthen our enemies around the world. That's why he gave the mullahs billions of dollars. That's why he betrayed the pro-democracy green movement in Iran. That's why he turned a blind eye as Iran launched terrorist attack after terrorist attack, killing American soldiers, killing American personnel, killing Israelis through Hezbollah and Hamas. And his dream will go up in smoke as well. And I think you're going to look at a profoundly transformed Middle East. And it'll be a rejection of Bidenism, of Obamaism, of Jimmy Carterism, and frankly, of the destruction of the Democratic Party in that region for the last 45 years. So that's my answer to your question.
Almost to the point where you're saying it's going to be easy. It's a 5,000-year-old country that's been in a defensive crouch for 75 years. They can endure a great deal of punishment. Now, what happens, game it out with me here, what happens if we give Israel everything they ask for and they throw everything that they ask for at them and they're still standing? What happens then?
Bill, you said you're in favor of them handing the bunker.
I'm saying that this decision that he's weighing out.
You had it. You were so close, man. You were going to make history today. This is an historical moment we're living through. You were actually going to be right for once in your life. Seriously. For once, you were so close to making sense. And then you just couldn't help yourself. So you're the one that said we're going to give them the bunker busters, and I assume you think we should. And I just said, well, yeah, if you give them the bunker busters, the war is over. So what's the argument? So your argument is what? Look, Bibi has said he doesn't want regime change. If it's a consequence, if the Iranian people rise up, then great. But he's not going to force regime change. Trump has said he's not forcing regime change. So here's your end game. The end game is simple. Iran's nuclear capacity is destroyed, wiped out, and eliminated. Its ballistic missiles are wiped out and eliminated. The regime has suffered a massive blow, in many ways an irreparable blow. Its military leadership decimated, decapitated. Its intelligence decimated, decapitated. So the mullahs will be teetering. They'll be desperately trying to cling to power, but we will have significantly rolled back Iranian power for at least a generation. That's what's going to happen. That's what we're on the verge of achieving. What's the problem?
If Israel can do it on their own and they are so in such a great position, then what are we deciding? Why do they need us at all?
Bill, don't you ever read a newspaper?
Jeff, I've been following this. I'm kind of asking you to game it out with me. Somehow you want to make it very personal.
No, because come on, you're asking you're asking a ridiculous question. The Israelis have said repeatedly, this has been widely reported by every newspaper in the world, that the Israelis say we can deal with Fordo, but it's higher risk for us. If you give us the bunker busters, because they're designed to blow up mountains, like that's what they're designed to do, that this would be the simplest, easiest way to do it. So please give us the bunker busters. Now, the problem is many in our military say there are busters, our bombs, our bombers. We shouldn't give them to any foreign country. If we're going to guarantee success, we should do it on our own. That's the argument. So the argument is we formally join Israel and help them finish off Iran's nuclear weapons program. It would be quicker. It would be more decisive. And with us in complete control of the bombs and the bombers, it would have a much higher rate of success, guaranteed success, if we took over the operation to blow up Fordo. I mean, Bill, I'm sorry, man, but this is being reported all over the world. So, again, I don't understand what your point is. But, Bill, you were so close, man. Dude, seriously. You were so close. So close. You almost had it, Bill. Call next week, and maybe we can do it, Bill. Together, you and me, we can do it. Thank you for that call, Bill, as always. More next. 8:19 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay. Many of you have been texting, emailing the Kuhner man saying, Kuhner, for God's sake, it's practically 8:20 now. What about the Kuhner Country poll question of the day? All right. Listen now to Caroline Leavitt, press secretary. She was asked, fine, Trump wants another 2 weeks before he makes a final decision on whether the United States will formally, or if the United States formally decides to join Israel to bomb Iran's nuclear weapons program. She was then asked if the president gives the green light to start launching U.S. strikes on the mullahs and on their nuclear enrichment infrastructure, will Congress have a vote? Will Trump go to Congress, get an authorization for war, and get authority from Congress to launch these bombing attacks on Iran? Listen to Caroline Leavitt's response. Roll cut to a mic.
If the U.S. were to take some type of military action, would the president go to Congress to seek war authority?
I'm not going to engage in hypotheticals. I gave you the statement from the president. He'll make a decision within 2 weeks.
So he's going to make his decision, but she's not getting into hypotheticals. Look, let me ask the poll question, and then I want to get your take. So, can President Trump use these bunker buster bombs, say at Fordo? Can he launch this U.S. bombing campaign in Iran without the permission of Congress? A, yes. B, no. I want to hear from you. Can President Trump use these bunker buster bombs in Iran, this bombing campaign, without in other words, if he decides to go and he decides to order these strikes, can he do it without the permission of Congress? A, yes. B, no. You can vote on our webpage, wrko.com/Kuhner, wrko.com/Kuhner, KUHN is in national ER. You can also vote via X. I'm very active on X. My handle there, at the Kuhner Report, all one word. And as always, The Kuhner Country poll question of the day, sponsored by Mario's. Mario's quality roofing, siding, and windows. I personally think he should go to Congress. I know it'll take a little bit longer, but to me, when you're going to take our country to war and an issue that is as momentous as this, you need to have a vigorous debate and discussion by the American people through their elected representatives. And yes, I believe he should get authority and authorization from Congress. But that's me. I want to hear from you. Sean in Louisville. Thanks for holding, Sean, and welcome.
Thanks, Jeff. Let's go, Brandon.
Let's go, Brandon, my friend.
So, I guess what my opinion on all of this is, obviously I'm against any boots on the ground. I think Trump should probably go to Congress if he was going to do anything anything beyond dropping a bunker buster or a couple bunker busters on the mountain. And I say that because it's not like we have that kind of argument whenever we do other military strikes. We drop bombs, smaller bombs. So obviously, we're just talking about the size of the bomb. Granted, sure, if we went on some campaign and we're bombing military bases and all over the place, all over Iran, that's a completely different story. But to say that we shouldn't just drop a couple bombs on one nuclear facility, I think I think I don't know. I think it's a little much. I think Trump could do that without Congress.
Sean, I promise I'll give you all the time in the world. But just to reinforce your point, in his first term, when he destroyed ISIS, and he did destroy ISIS, ISIS to me was created because of Obama. I blame him for the rise in ISIS. Trump took care of that and did the world and the region a massive favor. He dropped the mother of all bombs, multiple mother of all bombs, and smashed the caliphate and ordered the assassination of Baghdadi. And he got no authorization from Congress, and nobody cared. So there is precedent for that. There's no question. Please keep going.
And actually, to back up your point too, I mean, we all know that Obama was pretty much he was the drone strike in chief, and he definitely did not go to Congress every single time he did that. So
that's right.
But I think that in terms of if Trump should do something, I've been frustrated over the last week or so hearing people discuss, what's the base going to think? It's going to split this. I think in this particular moment, especially where he's not looking at another term, he really needs to think about history and how history remembers him. Because if we don't do anything, and if he doesn't get involved or he doesn't drop the bunker, and for some reason something survives in terms of a nuclear program, and there is some sort of an attack 20 years from now, they'll look back at this time. This is like we look back at Clinton and we say 9/11 could have not happened if Clinton would have taken Osama bin Laden out. But Clinton decided not to, right? So in this scenario, does Trump want to be Clinton, who's remembered for letting some attack happen 20 years from now? Or does he want to be, Obama?
Sean, drop the mic. I think you're right. In fact, I know you're right. He knows how important this decision is. He knows it. And he doesn't want the nuclear program to survive or be intact in any way. He wants a complete victory. 8:33 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer. Okay, my friends, it's now coming across the wires. Remember, they were meeting. The Iranian negotiators were meeting with foreign ministers of Europe in Geneva, Switzerland. And now there are some official statements that have come out. This is big breaking news. Hot tip, Fox News, but its other wire services are reporting this as well. Let me just read to you the lead, and that pretty much says everything you need to know. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi now has said that Iran is rejecting talks with the United States amid the country's conflict with Israel. He also called Washington a partner in crime with Israel. This is now according to the Iranian news agency that they're now sending out to the wire services across the entire world. So, I don't know. The Ayatollah may change his mind, but it looks like we've gotten their answer. Trump gave them 2 weeks, last chance at a negotiated settlement, last chance at not having the United States potentially enter the war, end this thing diplomatically, and the mullahs have given us their response, which was predictable, because in a way they're sort of like the Islamist version of Bill and Sudbury. With all due respect to Bill, they never miss an opportunity to miss an opportunity. They're consistently wrong. And again, you're dealing with absolute fanatics, lunatics, radical Islamic extremists who are completely disconnected from reality. And in a way, as I said in the opening hour of the show, I find it hard to believe that the mullahs would be willing to surrender their nuclear weapons program, because for the entire basis of the regime, the purpose, the mission of the regime from its inception in 1979 is to eventually acquire the bomb, to bring about the end of days, to bring about the Mahdi, as they call him, or the 12th Imam, to usher in the end of days, this end of the world, whereby a world Muslim empire now triumphs, and it has to happen with the annihilation of Israel, the death of the Jews, the death of America, the great Satan, in a big ball of fire. The ball of fire is obviously the nuclear weapon, the nuke. So when Trump said no enrichment and no nuclear weapon, for these mullahs, no enrichment means no nukes. No nukes means no 12th Imam. No fulfillment of the so-called Shia prophecy. So they're never going to give up their nuclear weapons program, even if it means more war, even if it means I don't know how many Iranians can die. They don't care. Even if it means World War III, it doesn't matter. So they've given us their answer. The question now is, what should Trump do? I think the diplomatic negotiation option is now, I think, dead. You never know. Never say never. But it looks like it's over. They've given us their response. So should Trump now basically say, okay, address the nation, address the country, in some ways address the world, and say, even at this late hour, with the bombs falling on Tehran, with the Iranians now seeing their nuclear enrichment sites getting blown to smithereens by Israel, the mullahs still refuse to accept abandoning the bomb and enrichment. And I gave them every possibility at peace. Every. Even another 2-week extension. And notice, they didn't even wait 2 weeks. They didn't even wait 1 week. Hell, they didn't even wait 24 hours. First chance they got, the middle finger. That was their reply, the middle finger. And so the question now for Trump is obvious. Either he goes in with Israel and we level Fordo and maybe other nuclear sites as well and widen this massive air and missile campaign, this bombing campaign against the mullahs, or he gives the bunker busters and the bomber to Netanyahu and gives him the green light. Bibi, you take them all out. Let me add one other thing now, and this is a very important point, and I want to get your take. 617-266-6868. Israel's defense minister yesterday came out and said that after that horrific ballistic missile attack on a major hospital, in fact, the biggest hospital in southern Israel, in clearly a war crime, Iran committed a war crime. There's no question. They targeted civilians. They've been deliberately targeting civilians, only civilians. They're not even hitting any military bases or installations. They are deliberately trying to rain missiles on civilian populations and civilian areas. This time they struck a hospital, nearly 100 badly injured. Israel's defense minister now has come out and said that it's time for Israel to eliminate, i.e. assassinate, the Ayatollah. Take out the supreme leader, Ali Khamenei. Many interpreted Trump yesterday coming out saying, one more chance at negotiation, let's give it 2 more weeks, as essentially him telling Israel, easy on the assassination program. Don't take out Khamenei now, because we still may need to negotiate with him. There's now no negotiation. If there's no negotiation, should Trump give Israel the green light? Apparently Israel knows where he is. He's in some bunker in a suburb in Tehran. And they've got precision-guided bombs. They believe they've got him, and they could drop a couple of these precision missile strikes, and they could take Khamenei out, decapitate the regime, kill the supreme leader. He is the head of the government, the head of the country. He is the head of their faith. If he falls, they believe the regime may fall. Should Israel now, in the wake of this response, assassinate, eliminate, however you want to phrase it, take out Ali Khamenei, Iran's supreme leader? 617-266-6868. But the bigger question, what should Trump do now? He's got his answer. Should he now join the bombing campaign? Or should he just tell Bibi, you go and finish it? 617-266-6868 is the number. Tom in Wisconsin. Thanks for holding, Tom, and welcome.
Hi, Jeff. Yeah, capture that bearded murderer and shave that beard off and then put him in that prison in El Salvador. But my point is the importance of the nuclear facility, if it's possible, it doesn't look like it is now, to pay off several of the entire amount of military officers in charge of that facility, pay them off, and have them open the facility so we can go in there and get the evidence and show the world the evidence. It also verifies our intelligence to see how accurate the Israelis were, as well as us, as to how far they were. You know, turning and blowing that facility up is probably what's going to have to be done. But there's also a great risk of exploding that facility's contents into a nuclear dust cloud that poisons the entire area for 10,000 years. So that would be an ecologic catastrophe. So there's a lot of advantages to see if it's possible to pay off some of these military officers so that they just let us in, and you pay that NITIS off to also set up a potential political system that the country evolves to. The political officers paid off would.
Well, I think you know what? I think you almost laid out a blueprint for what Trump and Israel, what America and Israel are going to have to do, which is convince some of these military leaders at the kind of mid-level and say, you've got to overthrow the Ayatollah or else you're going to lose your whole country. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, this is from 781. You can text the Kuhner Man, 70470, 70470. Jeff, Trump did not blink. To the contrary, he opened his eyes even wider. He's like a good oncologist. He's observed that the medicine is working. The tumors are shrinking and not spreading. Radical surgery has certain side effects and unknown risks that can't be undone or even adequately predicted. No matter what the hateful media say, Trump is a healer at home and abroad. And I would encourage him to address the nation and in the way only Trump can do. Shame the Democrats and the demonstrators now taking to the streets at this very dangerous time in history. I agree. I agree. In fact, this is a huge story, not here, but in Britain. So in front of the Iranian embassy in London, there was an anti-Islamic regime protest in London by protesters. They are waving the flag of the pre-1979 revolutionary Iran. They are supporters of the Crown Prince, Pahlavi. They would like to see the Crown Prince return to Iran, the mullahs to be toppled, and apparently 6 men, Islamic thugs, and they're now roaming London, attacked the demonstrators and protesters. 2 of them were sent to the hospital, beaten to a pulp. So even in London, these Islamist savages have their supporters. Here in the United States, it's been about 48 hours now, you are starting to see protests in favor of the mullahs by Democrat activists. These are the same that were on college campuses, were protesting ICE, protesting Doge. They just recycled these guys. And so now they've taken to the streets. They're waving the Iranian Islamic flag, the current flag of the Ayatollahs over the last 46 years. And they are now defending the mullahs, attacking Israel, and saying, hands off Iran. They stand with the Ayatollahs. This is in New York, in Chicago, in LA, and I'm telling you, it's inevitable. It will come to Boston this weekend. Take it to the bank. 617-266-6868. The mullahs now have slammed the door. It may be the last time they slam the door on a negotiated settlement. They say America now is engaged in war crimes. We are a bunch of war criminals for supporting Israel's attack on Iran. They will not negotiate with us. They refuse to negotiate with us. So Trump now has a big decision to make. He's given himself 2 weeks to make it. It's pretty much now, I think the diplomatic option is now off the table after the foreign minister said, we will never negotiate with the United States. So if that's the case, Trump either has to join Israel or stay out and let Bibi finish the job. What say you? 617-266-6868. And let me just say this, because this needs to be said. How incredibly backward, stupid, primitive. That's all I can think. That's the only word that keeps coming to my mind. Primitive. This leadership, this theocratic regime in Iran is. I mean, they really do remind me of the Japanese in World War II, the Japanese military leadership, or, as I said, Hitler in the bunker. I mean, literally, the regime is collapsing all around them. And these idiots are like, no surrender. Allah, 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 no surrender. Death to America. Death to America. Okay. Okay. I don't know what else to tell you. There is a video that's gone viral on TikTok. I hope you see it. You're not gonna believe it. It is images of Iran in the 1970s under the Shah, before these savage mullahs took over. You're not gonna believe it. Hotels everywhere, beaches, women in bikinis, men in Speedos. Do you know that Iran used to be a tourist mecca for Westerners? Because they have beautiful or at least they had beautiful beaches. Western tourists everywhere. Restaurants everywhere. Nightclubs everywhere. Women, as I said, in bikinis, women in skirts. None of them covered. Fashionable. By the way, the most advanced healthcare system in the entire region. A thriving, booming commercial economy. They had food courts. You see them eating and drinking at cafes. They had alcohol. I mean, you got to see this. Now, yes, it was a one-party state. Yes, it was an autocratic government. Yes. I'm not saying the Shah wasn't repressive. Yes. But my God, they were modern. They were Western, or at least partially Western. There's movie theaters. There, Jaws now it's going to be the 50th anniversary. They were watching Jaws in the movie theaters. And then you compare that, the images, and by the way, people were happy. I'm getting emails, I should read them. Jeff, my family fled when the Ayatollahs took over, and I look at family pictures of my family in Iran in the 1970s before. Everybody was happy, singing, dancing. They were at their homes, birthday parties, whatever it may be. Women were dressed like normal fashionable women. Men were fashionably dressed. There was a lot of food. People were happy. People were dancing. And the moment Khomeini and his clerics, his Islamo-fascist clerics took over, all of that was destroyed. And now, at their 12th hour, when they're facing now being toppled, they still cling to their dream of a nuclear bomb. 617-266-6868. Jimmy in Dorchester. Thanks for holding, Jimmy, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. I want to make 2 points. The first one is about Iran, and the second one is about the Bible and Trump. Okay, the first one. Remember the war between Iraq and Iran, and Hussein was the leader. Remember
Saddam Hussein, in the 1980s.
They put out the minefields. What do you think the Iranians did? They didn't want to lose soldiers, so they sent out their young children to go through the minefields. Remember that, Jeff?
And Jimmy, just to reinforce, you got a great memory. They not only sent kids, Iranian kids, 10, 11, 12-year-old kids, to run across the minefields. They would get blown up so that the military then could advance. But they gave them plastic keys, literally made in Taiwan. And the key said, if you die for the regime, you get blown up as you run across a minefield. This is the key to Allah, to heaven, and to paradise. That's the kind of fanatics that run that country. But please, keep going, Jimmy.
Right. Okay. According to the Bible, right? Remember when Saul was told by the Lord in a vision to take out their worst enemy, the Amalekites, and kill all the livestock? And Saul didn't complete what the Lord told him to do, so the Lord punished him. He left a lot of the livestock. Well, what this has to do with Trump and the Bible is, remember he was almost assassinated twice. It was divine intervention. The Lord saved Trump for a reason, Jeff, because he has to do something about Iran. They are pure evil. And if he had signed where you said that they called off the treaty, because if he had signed that treaty, he would have signed it with the devil. But here's the thing, Jeff. The Lord saved Trump because he's got to make a decision. He's got to either help Israel or he's got to do it himself. Take out that regime, because it's the regime of the devil.
Jimmy, I think their days are numbered. Really, I think the only question now is, do we do it with Israel behind the scenes, as we're doing it now, or do we do it formally? And there are pros and cons to both, obviously. But really, at this point, the Europeans are shocked, by the way. The Europeans can't believe it. They're looking in disbelief. They were anticipating some kind of a counteroffer. What they thought was Iran would make some concessions and try to haggle. But this blanket slap in the face, this blanket, rejection, the Europeans, they're saying they're just shocked. They're stunned. They're stunned. They can't believe it. And by the way, this is an incredible development. Europe is generally anti-Israel. Not every country, but most countries. Anti-Israel. Quite pro-Palestinian. They're not happy with Israel's war in Gaza. They've been very critical of Israel and Netanyahu. The European Union is united on Bibi bombing Iran. In fact, as I said yesterday, but it bears repeating, the Chancellor of Germany, Friedrich Merz, came out and said, Israel is doing the dirty work for us against Iran. That they're doing Europe a favor by taking out their nuclear weapons program, because the ballistic missiles, these more advanced modern missiles that Iran has, have the capability to hit Berlin and Paris and Rome and Vienna and Warsaw and London and Dublin. They're trying to work on a missile that could hit the eastern part of the United States. They haven't quite gotten there yet. But they can definitely strike Europe with a nuclear bomb if they get it. And so the Europeans are backing Netanyahu. So, and they just couldn't believe that the mullahs would just slap him in the face, slap Trump in the face. Jimmy, thank you very much for that call. So, okay. I mean, I don't know what else to tell you. Okay. 617-266-6868. I think now the path is very clear. It's going to be, this is going to end militarily. So diplomacy is now dead. Negotiations are now dead. They've given us their final answer. So now the only issue is, does Israel do it alone with us supporting them in the background? Or do we do it together? That's the only issue now. Sonny, you may disagree. I'm just giving you my honest opinion. Sonny in Plymouth. Thanks for holding, Sonny, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Hi, Sonny.
I enjoy the Kuhner report. You do a great job exposing the Democrats and all their lies.
Thank you.
Jeff,
Thank you, Sonny.
I put my faith in President Trump. I think that he's going to make the right decision. But one of my questions, all of this enriched uranium that Iran is hiding, don't they have to give it up rather than us blowing it up because of the radioactive fallout? And also, is Iran being advised by China right now? And what are those planes from China doing in Iran? What are they going to take out of there?
Well, Sonny, look, again, I don't have any special insight or access to intelligence. I'm just giving you, I do a lot of reading, I do a lot of prep work. I'm just giving you my honest, this is my honest take, okay? I read Iran, yes, they're fanatics, no question. But what I read this response as, China has told them we have your back. The Iranians got something from China. I don't know what they got, but they think that they can weather this storm. And I think China is petrified that the regime is going to fall because they've invested a lot in the mullahs. And it's not just that they're buying their oil and natural gas, which is huge, but the Chinese want the minerals. Marilyn and Norwood mentioned the lithium. There's a lot of rare earth minerals in Iran. By the way, Iran has so many natural resources. It's truly one of the wealthiest countries, resource-wise, in the world. It's resource rich. And the Chinese want it. And they fear, look, Pahlavi, if he gets the power, the crown prince, he's pro-American. He's pro-Western. He's like his old man. He may be his old man was a little bit arrogant. His old man was a bit of a prima donna. His old man, I mean, he was not the easiest guy to deal with. Eisenhower found him difficult. Kennedy found him difficult. LBJ found him difficult. Nixon found him difficult. He was prickly. He was very proud. He was Persian. He had his own way of doing things. So I'm not trying to romanticize the guy. But fundamentally, he was pro-American, pro-Western. He was on our side, okay, for all of his flaws. The Crown Prince is the same. Like he's a chip off the old block. So the Chinese know if Pahlavi comes back to power, even if he's in a transitional government, it doesn't matter. The next government will be much more pro-American, pro-Western, frankly, more nationalistic in a good sense. In other words, we're not just going to allow ourselves to become a vassal, a colony, a proxy of communist China. We're not just going to become a dependency on communist China and Russia. So they know that the next regime is going to be much more anti-China, anti-Russia, frankly, and pro-Western. There's no question. There's no question. And they will abandon the nuclear weapons program. So they're not an effective proxy anymore for the communist Chinese. So I read the evidence. If I was advising Trump, I'm like, yeah, the Ayatollahs are crazy. And they're like Hitler in the bunker. They're going to go down. But China's in their ear. They think China's going to give them enough muscle or enough backing that they can somehow survive and then eventually rebuild. So, that's how I read it. So that's why, to me, the advice now that I would give them is you don't stop until you have utterly destroyed, decimated, shattered their entire nuclear program, all of their ballistic missiles. And you do everything you can to encourage the opposition to rise up. That, to me, they've got to do that now. Now, the other thing, Sonny, is this. Yes, there is a danger of radioactive contamination, no question. But a lot of these sites are deep underground. So, yes, there's leakage, but this is what Trump is saying, his administration, the Israelis, the IAEA, they're saying, yes, it's not good, obviously. But because it's so deep underground, much of the radioactive contamination is contained. It's not in the sky, it's not in the atmosphere, it's not in the clouds, because it's so deep in the ground. So they believe they can mitigate a lot of the environmental, ecological fallout. Ironically, because these bunkers are so deep. But that's why, to be honest, Sonny, what everybody really wants, and that's what Trump was hoping for, just sign the damn deal. Just sign it, and we can send in the UN inspectors, and they can dismantle it thoroughly, and we don't have to even worry about any of these radiation or radioactive contamination. But no, the mullahs being the mullahs, that's what they do. So you're dealing with 7th century medieval fanatics. They really are. Think 7th century barbarians. And them with a nuclear bomb. 617-266-6868. So my point is just this. When you have the pacifist Europeans on board, the Germans, the French, the Swedes, the Danes, the Italians. I mean, these aren't believe me, these aren't quote-unquote warmongers. When you've got the EU, who they hate Israel to their very core, saying, no, the mullahs, no, it's just, no, they can't, no, just, they can't have it. Look, even the Sunni Muslim powers don't want the mullahs to get the bomb. That's why they've been so quiet. So it's almost like there's an agreement among most civilized powers in the world. Whatever you do, don't give the Ayatollahs the bomb. And now we're finding out China, again, are the only ones now that are giving them the advice to stay and hang on and not give up. That's why, in the end, I've said this many times, yes, now, in terms of acute threat, it's Iran, like the immediate threat. But our greatest long-term threat, it's not even close, is communist China. And this is a different discussion for a different day. but peel Russia away from China, because that will weaken China. Don't push Russia into China's arms. We have to strip China of all allies possible. The weaker China is, the safer we are. Kathy in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Kathy, and welcome.
Hi, Jeff. Thank you for taking the call.
My pleasure, Kathy.
Let me preface by saying I am a Trump supporter.
Okay.
However, I did not vote for this, as I'm sure many Americans feel the same way. We voted for peace, not escalation of war. My thoughts on...
Kathy, please hang on. I'm very happy that you called, because you do speak for a good chunk of Trump voters and, frankly, Kuhner Country listeners. So please, Kathy, hang on. After this break, I'm going to come right back to you. She says, I didn't vote for this. 266-6868 is the number. Okay, let's go right back to Kathy in New Hampshire. She is a Trump supporter. She voted for Trump, but she says she did not vote for this. She didn't vote for war. She didn't vote for an escalation in war. Please, Kathy, pick up where we left off.
Hey, thank you, Jeff. My thoughts are you can't negotiate with a regime whose only purpose, they live to dominate the world. You can't. Let Netanyahu take this regime down and have our chances with the next regime to maybe negotiate, to maybe draw peace lines, to let our inspectors go into the country. You can't negotiate with this group. And to get us involved in a war, we all know how these Middle Eastern wars go. They don't last a week. They go on and on. We have no skin in the game here, so to speak, as far as I'm concerned. Let Netanyahu do what he wants to do. He wants to take out this regime. Let him. Let us take our chances with the next one. Maybe negotiations would be on the table. This regime will not negotiate. They are too hell-bent on wiping out the world and dominating everything. This is not what people voted for. We were hoping the Ukraine-Russia would stop. And now to escalate and get into another involvement, it's not what we want. It's not what we voted for. Sorry for ranting, but that's how I feel.
Kathy, are you, if you don't mind me asking, are you disappointed? I'm just curious. Are you disappointed in, say, Trump's first, 6 months in office?
Disappointed because I voted for him because of peace and the border. He came across for the border. I don't know what goes through his mind or what his entourage is talking to him about. I just know how, as a mother and a grandmother, I don't want to see this country get involved in a war that will it won't end well. It just won't end well. He has to prove himself as a president of peace. He ran on that. He ran on one of his campaign promises, bring peace. This is far from bringing peace. I don't know what we get from Israel. I'm not too up on, I know they're an ally, but what exactly do we get from them? Why is it always the United States jumping in to rescue and put our kids and lives and country on the line? For what? Let Netanyahu take the Ayatollah out. Let him take the whole regime out and then see what we go from there. That's how I feel. I don't know. I could be wrong on this, but that's how I feel.
Kathy, thank you very much for that call. I really appreciate it. You're speaking for many. I know that. I don't know if it's a majority, but certainly many people, many Kuhner Country listeners. I get a lot of emails, and they very similar sentiments to yours. So thank you, Kathy. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, let me ask you, do you agree or disagree with Kathy? She says, ultimately, this is not our fight. Let Bibi do it. Let Israel do it. Trump ran on peace. This would be a violation of one of his central campaign pledges. It would be in some ways a betrayal of his voters. And we've got other fish to fry. We've got to, deal with the border invasion, mass deportations. We've got to bring down inflation. We've got to pass the big, beautiful bill. There are many, many things that Trump needs to focus on here at home. That should be our number one priority. Let Israel, let Bibi deal with the Ayatollah and the mullahs. And we should focus more here at home. Agree, disagree, 617-266-6868. Tim in South Carolina. Thanks for holding, Tim, and welcome.
Hi, Jeff. You
Hi,
have
Tim.
the number one show on the radio. I always enjoy listening to you, and thank you for everything you do. I just wanted to bring up another angle here.
Yes, go ahead, Tim.
I understand. Oh, you're welcome. I understand what we're being told. They're being decimated and destroyed. There are other reports, though, and I'm wondering if this is, in some ways, a wag the dog. If you don't mind, at 8:30 last night, the esteemed General Douglas McGregor, he put out a tweet, and if it's okay, I'd like to read it to your listeners.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
He writes, "Don't be fooled." He writes, "Don't be fooled. Israel is in worse shape than people think. About 1/3 of Tel Aviv has been damaged or destroyed. As far as their military installations are concerned, I'm told many Israeli aircraft are being flown to Cyprus to avoid being struck. Israel was not prepared for Iran's response." So I guess, not to sound repetitive, is it wag the dog here?
Well, push it. I'm just curious. Just take it to the end here. You mean wag the dog in the sense that in other words, this is Israeli propaganda, right? I think that's what McGregor is claiming, that Israel is not doing as well as they claim, that their military is getting bloodied as well, that Tel Aviv is taking more of a beating than they're letting on. But this idea of this success, an inevitable success, in other words, is this to coax Trump into saying, well, Israel's going to win, so let's side with the winner and join this war to finish Iran off? Is that what you're getting at, Tim?
No, I'm not sure I am. For whatever reason, he's an esteemed general. I mean, he obviously is privy. And where is this coming from? This distraction, if you will. Is this whole WW3 a distraction? These are just questions that I'm asking because as I read...
Well, Tim, can you do me a big favor? I'm so happy you mentioned Colonel Douglas McGregor and some of his tweets. Please hang on. I've got a quick break. I'm going to come right back to you. Don't touch that dial. 3 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, we're going to go right back to your calls and Tim in South Carolina. But first, joining us now, as she always does at this time, she's the co-founder, CEO, president of Kelly Financial Services. And yes, that is her wonderful name, Kelly. Kelly, how are you?
Good morning, Jeff. I am good. When you're retired or getting close, one of the smartest things you can do, clear view of your finances, because the truth is most people don't realize where their money is actually going each month, and that uncertainty can create stress. That's exactly why we've created our Safe Money Strategies workbook. It's a simple, no-nonsense guide to help you take control of your retirement plan so you can move forward with confidence. You don't have to guess and you don't have to worry. When you can see everything clearly, you can make smarter decisions. And That's, again, why we created our workbook, and that's what it's all about. If you'd like your free copy or to speak with one of our advisors, just give us a call or email us at kelly@kellyfinancial.org. Jeff, I'll continue this conversation with our Kelly advisors tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. on Safe Money Strategies Radio. Do tune in or go to our website for the radio rewind. Jeff? Have a wonderful weekend. My best to Grace and the kiddos.
Thank you, Kelly. Have a wonderful weekend. Please stay cool because we're getting hit with a heat wave. And my best to everybody at Kelly Financial. Again, my friends, for a free copy of the guide, 888-800-1881. Call 888-800-1881. Or if you prefer, and she's very quick on email, you can email Kelly directly. Kelly@kellyfinancial.org. Kelly@kellyfinancial.org. Okay, let's go right back to Tim in South Carolina. Tim, you were saying you're a fan of Colonel Douglas McGregor. Or a fan, but you read him and you take him seriously. And he's a patriot, there's no question. And that he is saying there's a lot of misinformation. That this is a potential wag the dog scenario. That Israel is not doing as well as it claims, that their warplanes are being clipped, they're being damaged, they have to be sent to Cyprus to be fixed, that Tel Aviv, as you said, according to McGregor, 1/3 of it is now in ruin, rubble, or has been hit or directly impacted by missile strikes. So Iran is doing better and putting up much more of a fight than the Israeli government is letting on. Did I sum up your position accurately, Tim?
Yes, you did, Jeff. I think there are 2 points to this phone call. One is, what is the history of our mainstream media, especially in these last, 9 years? I always think opposite. Everything they tell us, we find out later that it really wasn't what they reported. It really wasn't what they're telling us. With that said, I'll bring up my second point. Do we really know what's going on over there? I understand the mainstream media reporting. I know what we're being told. There are a lot of conversations on the X, the Twitter. That seems to be the main part of the discussion on all of this. And I'm reading a lot of different things. There are reports that the citizens of Israel have been told that they're not allowed to film, say, with their cell phones, any of the bombing or anything because they don't want to let out the fact that they're taking hits. I have no idea, Jeff. I have no idea personally what's going on there. I'm throwing this stuff out there. That's
well, Tim, really look, I can just say this, okay? I had Colonel McGregor on multiple times in the past. And initially, he was always very happy to come on. In about the last year to 18 months, he doesn't come on anymore. I've made multiple offers. He just doesn't want to come on. I've noticed a change in Colonel McGregor. Number one, I'm just giving you my honest reaction, like I'm in the confessional. He claimed 3 years ago that Putin was going to win the war in Ukraine decisively. He went on about how he had all this extra intelligence and military information, and that this war was going to be over in a couple of months. That Putin and the Russians were going to roll up with this massive artillery barrage, and that the capital Kiev would collapse, the Ukrainian army would collapse, and that Putin would just roll into the capital and basically take over most of Ukraine, and that there was no point in providing any support to the Ukrainian government. That claim of his turned out to be completely false. He was wrong. Now, it's okay. People are wrong. But I'm just saying he has a track record of being wrong. Sometimes he's right. Sometimes he's wrong. I have friends in Tel Aviv. Okay, I know people in Tel Aviv. We go back many decades. Many of them used to work with me at the Washington Times. And now they live in Tel Aviv, either as reporters, as stringers, or they've retired. I've asked them what the situation is. They have not told me a third of Tel Aviv has been hit or is in rubble or has been damaged. they're basically saying, yeah, I mean, the hospital was hit. Some missiles have gotten through. They're targeting civilian areas. But for the most part, much of Tel Aviv, the overwhelming majority of it, like 95% or whatever, is intact. So I do know this. The Iranian state media is claiming that. You can look it up. They even have an English translation of it. So is he getting his information from the Iranians? I wouldn't trust the Iranians. I get your point about the mainstream media. I'm with you, Tim. But I wouldn't trust the mullahs either. Now, I can just say this, and I don't know if that's the reason why he doesn't want to come on my show. I'm speculating. In about the last year, especially the last 6 months, he's become very anti-Israel, extremely anti-Israel. I would say virulently anti-Israel. For example, he now repeatedly says that, this is McGregor now, that Trump is owned by his Jewish donors. And he mentions Adelson's wife, and he mentions a couple of others. That they got him elected, this is what he claims, and that basically Jewish money, he's practically said this, Jewish money is running Trump, running the White House, and running the United States. And that he's now become Bibi Netanyahu's poodle. And that if Bibi says jump, Trump will say how high. So he's now pushing this conspiracy theory that powerful, wealthy, Zionist Jewish billionaires have captured and hijacked the president and that he's doing their bidding. And he is now convinced that Israel is the root cause of all the violence in the Middle East. The Palestinians, Israel's fault. Iran, Israel's fault. Radical Islam, Israel's fault. So now, I don't know if he doesn't want to come on because I'm going to challenge him. I don't know what it is. But he now has he's put himself in the camp of being a relentless Israel basher and an Israel hater. And do I think Trump is bought off by Zionist billionaires? No. Do I think he's Bibi Netanyahu's poodle? No. And I can cite you many examples where he's had a difference of opinion with Bibi, where he's shut Bibi down, where he's opposed Bibi, or he hasn't done what Bibi wanted him to do. But I'm just saying, Tim, that's where McGregor is right now. So I take everything he says now with a big grain of salt. Let's put it that way. 9:48 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer, and down the stretch we come, my friends. Brian in East Bridgewater. Thanks for holding, Brian, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff, thank you. I got a different outlook on this, but how old is the supreme leader of Iran? Isn't he in his 90s?
He's 85.
85. Okay,
he's
so
85. He's mentally starting to fade, and he's got serious prostate issues. I'm not trying to make fun of the guy. No, really, he's got like real prostate. He's got bad health. His prostate is in bad shape. Please keep going, Brian.
Put this nuclear bomb together and send it off and blow something up and start a nuclear war. He'd be going out with a bang, knowing, and he'd love to do this, and then he could see his gods in heaven. So I think if he wants to go out with a bang, let us be the ones that send him off in a bang and end their whole nuclear plan. You know what I'm saying?
That's funny. If he's going to go out, we're the ones that should send him out, right, Brian? Brian, I'm just curious. Would you just use American firepower to take out Fordo, that big nuclear enrichment site that's buried underneath this mountain? Or would you just drop a bunker buster and take out Khamenei and the entire political leadership in Iran? In other words, do you just want Trump to do a limited hit or join Israel and together just finish the job?
I think once you take out the head of the snake and the whole factory, the whole missile launching site. I think you're going to find that everybody else is going to just be like applauding. You know, it'll be like taking out the Wicked Witch of the North. You know, everybody else is going to be happy. You know, they're all going to go back to, like you were saying earlier in the show, how wonderful it was over there years ago. And I think that's what they want.
I mean, if I was a young Iranian, hell, if I was an old Iranian, I'd be I'd be begging for the Crown Prince to come back. I mean, that's, to me, it's like, you can't compare the two. But, Brian, thank you very much for that call. 617-266-6868. So basically, Brian is saying, hey, you want to die for Allah? That's no problem, Ayatollah, Supreme Leader. We can arrange that for you, and you'll get your 72 virgins in heaven. You want to really? You want to die for Allah? Well, first class ticket straight to heaven, baby. Richard in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Richard, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Hi, Richard.
I just want to say that this is all happening. I called you, and you vehemently disagreed with me. And you're not going to believe what's going to happen next week, because I hope that everyone's ready to have their young men and women sacrifice themselves on the ground for the state of Israel. That's all.
So, Richard, you think that Trump is going to order strikes on Iran, and he's not just going to order airstrikes. You think he's going to put U.S. boots on the ground, correct?
They are already there. There's already boots on the ground there. There are special forces people on the ground there already. Not many, but they're definitely there. And the same rhetoric that they're using to pump people up to be Iran be the big boogeyman is the same thing they used in Libya. Same kind of rhetoric, same thing. It's really pretty common, but it's pretty awful, because people are going to die for the state of Israel. And the state of Israel should basically take care of itself.
Richard, final, so I just want to so your prediction is next week Trump takes us to war, and I know you're saying your special forces are already there. I haven't seen those reports, but let's just let that go. Just put that on the side. I just want to nail down your prediction. Trump takes us to war, and he will also put U.S. boots, he will order a deployment of ground troops as well, correct?
It's going to get a lot worse. It's going to get a lot worse by this time next week. And people are going to be dying that shouldn't be dying. It's not what we voted for.
Richard, thank you very much for that call. 617-266-6868. Let me squeeze one more in. Alex, hey, my fellow paisan in Rentham. Alex, thanks for holding. And welcome. Alex? Look at it. Look at that. Look at a build-up I gave this guy. And he's not listening. All right. Frank in Medford. Frank, I hate to do this to you. We've got 1 minute. The floor is all yours. Go.
Jeff, first time, long time.
Welcome.
Iran's out declared war against us in Iraq. Ask all the military people that have lost their lives and got blown up by IEDs, and we used to put the red line across the SAMs there saying that we were going to stop them from doing it. We never gave them anything. We never tried to stop them from building the IEDs and killing our troops. And also the commercial waterways, we used to watch over them and the commercial waterways there, the United States, and the proxies are doing everything they can to affect the commercial waterways for international shipping. I don't understand how these people, they're like Chamberlain, the anti-Semites, that are on talking to you, saying there that they'd rather have a dirty bomb blow up in the United States than rather see a little bit of radiation come out of a hole in the ground 300 feet in the ground where they always explode atomic weapons. I don't understand any of it.
Well, there's a lot of hatred for Israel. That's, I mean, you know me, I support Israel, and so does Trump, thank the Lord. But there's a lot of hatred for Israel. I think there's no question. Look, the one thing I do agree with Richard, I think next week will be very decisive. I don't think it's going to be what he says. I think Israel could end this war by next week. Fingers crossed. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.